always thought the valor of the Secret Service, how they would literally, throw themselves in front of potential assassins' bullets, and always fascinated me. And the question to me was always, wait a minute, why didn't these agents do more to protect the man? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized there were a lot of anomalies, a lot of questions that needed to be answered on the subject.
No one has spent more time studying the Secret Service's actions that day than Vince Palamara.
The standard operating procedure in an open motorcade would have been for the agents to be running, walking, or jogging with the presidential limousine. And there was also 2 handrails in the back for an agent or agents to hold on to, so they would be in close proximity to the president. Agents not riding on the rear of the limo is a huge issue in this case. The Secret Service agents are powerless to really do much of anything if they're not close to the president. And official mythology, I like to call it, is that President Kennedy allegedly ordered the agents off the car 4 days before Dallas.
Claiming President Kennedy asked for changes to the motorcade's normal security protocols had been a recurring theme during the Warren Commission.
I spoke to the special agent in charge of the White House detail, the #1 agent, Gerald Bain. I asked him, President Kennedy, I understand he was difficult to protect, right? He didn't want the agents on the back of the car, and he told me, this is the exact quote, "I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car. If you look at the newsreels, you'll see agents on there." Well, one by one, I spoke to many of his colleagues, not only in the Secret Service, but actually White House aides that were not Secret Service agents, and it was a landslide. They were all telling me the same thing.
Supposedly Kennedy ordered the agents off the back of the limousine. No, he had nothing to do with that. The record of history, that is false.
President Kennedy, very nice man, not difficult to protect, did not order the agents off the back of the car.
This complete departure from procedure is captured here as the motorcade begins to leave Love Field Airport in Dallas.
Jogging beside the car was an agent. In the follow-up car behind him, another agent rises from his seat and does hand gestures like this, obviously to order him to cease and desist. The agent stops in his tracks 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times, goes like this. And actually, that's the universal body language for what is going on. Turns out the agent name was Don Lawton, and he's the agent who's formerly told to cease and desist by shift leader Emory Roberts, who rises in his seat with the hand gestures, and you see Don Lawton going like this. Don Lawton rode on the back of the car on the Chicago trip earlier in 1963 and 4 days before in Tampa. But he's relegated to meaningless Love Field luggage duty during the motorcade, during the assassination. It's ridiculous.
Secret Service agent Clint Hill is also recalled from his position on the opposite side of the limousine. Emory Roberts had been the only one of 3 Secret Service shift leaders from the White House that was part of the motorcade.
Emory Roberts was in charge of the follow-up car that was immediately behind JFK, full of Secret Service agents. He was the general, so to speak, of the follow-up car. If he said something, that's how it went.
Emory Roberts, however, received his orders from Floyd Boring, the #2 man of the Secret Service White House detail, based in Washington.
Floyd Boring, he was in charge of planning the Texas trip, and he was the one who gave out assignments.
In an interview with the Assassination Records Review Board in 1996, he stated that there had been no change in policy for the Dallas trip, and put the blame on President Kennedy. The #1 man and head of the White House detail, Gerald Bain, was on vacation starting the week before the Texas trip, which left the immediate handling of the trip to Boring. Floyd Boring's right-hand man in charge of the logistics on the ground in Texas was Special Agent Winston Lawson.
Winston Lawson came from the Buffalo, Syracuse, New York area. He was a former counterintelligence agent in the Army, and he joined the Secret Service in 1959. And again, he was an advance agent, an agent that would actually go to the different cities, towns in America and overseas in advance to work with the local police and dignitaries and whatnot to get everything in line with motorcade rides, building security, etc., etc.
Lawson, assisted by Agent Roger Warner, set the order of the vehicles in the Dallas motorcade.
The normal order would have been to have a pilot car and a lead car, which was done in Dallas. Then you had a flatbed truck of the press photographers in front of the limousine filming and being eyewitnesses, and that in and of itself is a deterrent. And you had the press buses close behind the limousine, again, professional newsmen, eyewitnesses, they would have been there filming.
Conveniently, the press was moved back at the last minute. There wouldn't have been a need for Abraham Zapruder, an amateur, to film the assassination.
Another break from routine in the Dallas motorcade, the positioning of police motorcycles around the president's limousine.
As with any other motorcade, the Secret Service worked hand in hand with local authorities to ensure the safety of the president. Usually surrounding the car, there would be a group of motorcycles. This was not only to obscure or block the view of potential assassins, but also to prevent anyone from the public who might be viewing, who got too excited, from approaching the car.
And up to and including the day before the assassination, this held true. In his prior Texas stops in San Antonio, Houston, and Fort Worth, normally there were 6 to 9 motorcycle officers around the presidential limousine in a wedge formation, including flanking the car, which means in translation, they were riding right beside JFK. Then all of a sudden there is a last minute change and the motorcycles are reduced to 4 beside the car, but then they're not even beside the car, they're not flanking anymore, they're moved behind. Translation, the formation was meaningless. It offered no protection at all. In fact, when the shooting began, you don't even see the motorcycle officers around the car.
Agent Lawson told the Warren Commission why he had ordered the motorcycles to fall back from the limousine.
Well, it's my understanding he couldn't hear conversation well. And that's why he didn't want the motorcycles beside him. And yet they had no problem that morning in Fort Worth, the day before in San Antonio and Houston, and 4 days before, a week before, the month before, the year before, the years before. They left Kennedy a sitting duck.
Another line of protection for the president that wasn't used was the limousine's bubble top.
The bubble top was a plexiglass covering that was put on the car, the presidential limousine. The conventional wisdom that it was bulletproof or bullet resistant. Turns out it was not bulletproof or bullet resistant in the standard way we think of that. However, it was a psychological deterrent because most people assumed it was bulletproof.
Popular belief has it that the limousine's bubble top was not used for 2 reasons. 1, because what started as an overcast and dreary day turned sunny and clear.
The actual films and photos of several motorcades shows the bubble top on in the brightest weather conditions imaginable. So there's a myth that it was only on there for inclement weather. Not true. And the bottom line, what the bubble top would have done is it would have obscured an assassin's view via the sun's glare.
The second reason most often given as to why the bubble top had not been used is that the president had requested not to use it.
But I spoke to the agent who was the driver of the follow-up car, Sam Kinney. Sam Kinney adamantly on 3 different occasions told me that President Kennedy had nothing to do with it. It was solely his responsibility.
Supposedly, JFK said, I'm quoting now, get that goddamn bubble top off the list. That is not true.
The bubble top came in 6 pieces, but sometimes it was on there for just the front and rear pieces were on, so it would be an open car and some semblance of protection as well. A partial bubble top with the front and rear pieces on, and he would be able to get air and be able to stand up, and he didn't have that configuration. It's a question of why. Why wasn't at least that configuration used in Dallas?
Another troubling inconsistency with Secret Service protocols was the monitoring of buildings.
Buildings were not properly monitored in Dallas. Windows were not even properly monitored by the Secret Service. Wynn Lawson said it was usual instructions to give out these orders to scan the windows along the parade route, but he didn't remember giving out the order or not. And it turns out that Dallas police, that were also involved in security of the motorcade route, said that no orders were given. The bottom line protocol were agents or local police or both were supposed to monitor buildings. Dealey Plaza was not properly cleared, was not properly monitored, and the overpasses, any potential overpasses that would have been clear to spectators and manned by local police.
Even more alarming is what happened inside the Secret Service car directly behind the president's limousine once shots rang out. Shift leader Emory Roberts would give an order to the other agents in the car.
When the assassination begins, he orders the men not to move. Sam Kinney, the driver of the fob car, who's right beside him, confirmed to me that this happened. He ordered the men not to move at the beginning of the assassination.
Henry Roberts supposedly ordered the men not to move. That's exactly right.
These men were sworn to protect the president, to dive in front of a bullet if need be, to sacrifice their body. And you mean to tell me this man is going to order them to cease and desist when the shooting begins?
And just what were the Secret Service agents who were actually inside the president's limousine doing at the time of the shooting?
Agents Bill Greer and Roy Kellerman were pivotal to the success of the assassination, and they were pivotal to the success of the assassination through inaction. Bill Greer was the driver of the president's limousine in Dallas. Roy Kellerman was riding right beside him. Greer hits the gas pedal, Kennedy lives. First shot rings out. Bill Greer looks back at the president. His foot's on the brake too because the car slows down. It's only going 11.2 miles an hour. It's crawling at this point. And then Roy Kellerman says, "Get out of line, we've been hit." That's when Bill Greer turns around a second time and is staring at Kennedy and doesn't do anything until Kennedy is killed. Yes, it was only 6 to 8 seconds, depending on estimates, but that is a lifetime for a Secret Service agent. Count down 6 to 8 seconds and watch the video of Reagan being shot. These men, by the time the 8-second shot, they're well out of there. Let alone 2, 3, 5 seconds. Amazing what they did. And Roy Kellerman, for his part, doesn't jump. He doesn't jump back, and he's turned around. He's staring at Kennedy too.
The shooting had stopped by the time Clint Hill, who was assigned to protect the First Lady, finally leapt onto the limousine. Could these monumental lapses by the Secret Service just have been a series of unfortunate oversights?
How convenient that this all happened on the day allegedly a lone assassin struck the president down. 1963 protocol, President Kennedy should have lived in Dallas. He should have lived past the Dallas motorcade. But Floyd Boring, in charge of protection of the president by planning the Texas trip, Emory Roberts in charge of the fob car, and Bill Greer, the driver of the president's car. Those three men bear the largest burden of what went down in Dallas. The buck stops with the Secret Service. Yeah.
Roy Kellerman spoke with FBI agents at the president's autopsy. He was quoted with a surprising statement.
Agent Kellerman said that the security for this trip was the most stringent and thorough ever employed by the Secret Service for any trip the president ever made. Now, if you believe that, I've got some land I want to sell you.
In 1995, the government's Assassination Records Review Board, wanting to compare security in Texas against other recent trips, requested to see all Secret Service documents pertaining to presidential visits around that time. Rather than comply, the Secret Service destroyed many of its records from the fall of 1963, making any true comparisons impossible.
Keeping a close watch over them is their 9-man Secret Service detail.
The Secret Service main objective is definitely to protect the president. They're not there to investigate. They're not there to necessarily go after an assassin or assassins or to foil a plot. Their whole raison d'etre is to cover and evacuate the president.
Head of security for the trip is veteran agent Roy Kellerman. This is his first time in charge.
He came from Detroit, Michigan, and he rose quickly through the ranks. He had a funny nickname. They called him Gabby. The reason why I called him Gabby was the exact opposite. He was very soft-spoken and didn't speak much.
The Secret Service would fail dramatically in the coming days. But who else knew of the plot to kill the president?
The fires of frustration and discord are burning in every city.
His words divide America.
North and south.
By giving his famous June '63 speech, he really fanned the flames in the right wing, the kind of people that President Kennedy himself said, well, we're heading to nut country now.
Kellerman and his agents are doing their best to create an envelope of security around Jackie and the president. Working as a team, they know exactly what to look for.
You're looking for something out of place. You're looking for an angry face, somebody with their hands in their pockets. They'll tell them in a nice way, please remove your hands from your pockets. This is the stressful part of their job. This is what they signed up for. They knew that when they made the White House detail, they were the elite of the elite.
Kellerman and his team are about to be tested like never before. It's raining as Air Force One touches down at Carswell Air Force Base. No one aboard expects anyone to notice the presidential party's arrival this late. But as Roy Kellerman looks out of his window, he mutters, "I'll be damned." Thousands have braved the rain, hoping to glimpse Jackie.
Roy Kellerman, I'm sure he couldn't believe the crowd. It was like they were greeting a rock star. It was like Beatlemania, maybe before Beatlemania began with the Kennedys.
It might be terrible weather conditions and late at night, but this might be one's only opportunity to see them up close and personal.
Kellerman knows not everyone in Texas will be so welcoming. Tomorrow, they are due in Dallas. It's the end of a long first day for Secret Service agent Roy Kellerman. With his charges secure in Suite 850 of the Hotel Texas, he clocks off. But as Kellerman heads to bed, many of his agents head to the bar.
9 agents drank the night before the assassination. That's grounds for removal from the agency. If they only would have left the front and rear pieces on and even had that open piece in the middle, that would have been a security function. It's a psychological deterrent because so many people wrongly assumed it was bulletproof when an assassin or assassins even try with it on. If you listen to the narration that morning on WFAA ABC, they say, wow, the president, this is amazing. Instead of getting into the president's limousine, he's heading towards the crowd.
Secret Service boss Roy Kellerman may be getting used to this scene, but he's not letting his guard down.
You can see Roy Kellerman, everybody, he's looking to see that the various local police and local agents are in place. He's looking to see that rope line is there. He's looking to see everything appears to be normal.
The motorcade stretches for half a mile.
You had the presidential limousine. You had the Secret Service fob car. You had the mayor's car. Then you had the vice president car, and you had the Secret Service fob car for him, other various dignitary cars, local congressmen and senators, you had the press and so on.
The City of Dallas police have deployed over 700 men, but unusually, none are guarding Dallas's many high-rise rooftops.
The major trip before in Florida, in Tampa, 28 miles, almost 3 times the length of Dallas.
They had multi-story building rooftops guarded with all the sheriff's department with heavy arms. In fact, I spoke to the lead motorcycle officer in Tampa. He told me, oh, every multi-story building at 28 miles had armed men, and they would have shot anybody untoward during that motorcade.
Got a pretty good crowd of people down here on Turtle Creek.
Halfway down Main Street, FBI Special Agent James Hosty watches the motorcade pass by. He's shocked at how exposed the President and First Lady are. All the Secret Service agents are in the car behind.
When you realize the building rooftops weren't guarded, there's people hanging all out of windows, you realize they weren't on the back of the car in a concentrated fashion. And there wasn't more motorcycles bracketing the car, and even the use of the bubble top. It makes you realize how much Kennedy was a sitting duck.
10-4-1, is there a pretty good crowd there?
The motorcade turns off Main Street and enters Dealey Plaza. And they make a short right-hand turn onto Houston Street.
In the presidential car, Jackie hears Governor Connolly's wife say to the president, "You certainly can't say that the people of Dallas haven't given you a nice welcome."
And the president says, "No, you sure can't." Then they make the really tight jog onto Elm Street. Now, this was all a violation of Secret Service protocol and common sense. You're never supposed to take the president in a situation where you're slowing the car down like that.
The president's car is now turning onto Elm Street, and it will be only a matter of minutes before he arrives at the trademark. I was on Simmons Freeway earlier, and even the freeway was jam-packed with spectators waiting their chance to see the president.
The first shot rings out. The vast majority of Dealey Plaza witnesses thought it was a firecracker or even a motorcycle backfire.
Stand by, please. Something has happened in the motorcade route. Several police officers are rushing up the hill. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
Secret Service Agent Kellerman screams into his radio.
Lawson, this is Kellerman, we've been hit. Win Lawson was the agent in the lead car in front of them. We've been hit. Get us to the hospital immediately.
Stand by. 10-4 Parkland has been notified, 1232.
Jackie Kennedy tries to get out of the limousine, her pink suit covered in her husband's blood. As the motorcade screeches to a halt, Agent Kellerman helps lift the president out of the car.
He said JFK's eyes were open and it looked like all signs of life were gone, although technically he did have a heartbeat and technically he lived for another 20 to 30 minutes. But for all intents and purposes, he was DOA.
Suspicion has also been cast on some of those closest to the president, in particular Secret Serviceman Roy Kellerman and his team of agents.
They definitely felt like they failed in their mission. They had one job to do, the number one most important job. The life of the president was taken.
Although he never spoke about the assassination, Kellerman hinted he thought there was more to the story than just Lee Harvey Oswald.
I spoke to his widow, her name was June, and she said that Roy accepted that there was a conspiracy. In fact, when he spoke to the House Select Committee, he says, "I'll accept that." It's like, wait, so Roy accepted there was a conspiracy? Yes, he believed there was a conspiracy, but she never got any details from him, nothing.
As an aside, by the way, the fellow we talked about in the last interview, Vince Palamara,
yeah.
You've seen his letter to the about your book?
I've not read it, no.
I'm sure you probably know that he said that Mrs. Kennedy and Me is highly recommended to everyone for its honesty and rich body of truth. He actually fully endorsed your book, even though he's been critical of...
Well, I'll accept his endorsement.
Are you worried that he's being...
Well, maybe he has some secret agenda, I don't know, but I accept his praise. Thank you.
In your...
Jerry and I talked about this a lot because I'd read something or read reports and I'd say, Jerry, this contradicts what you're telling me or what Clint is telling me. And I came to realize that these were the guys that were there. And their memories are so vivid and so clear. And as I would talk to other agents, they would corroborate the stories. And I realized that this is the truth. And the other people that are writing these other reports and all these researchers that have studied this endlessly, they weren't there. And, you know, so you can take some of what is written, but what I believe is what these men have told me to be.
We've got some video from YouTube. One of the things you say in your book, it made you want to write this book, was all the conspiracy theories, and you talked about the movie from Oliver Stone. This is a man named Vince Palamara. Do you know him?
I'm familiar with him. I don't know him.
He says that, I guess, we'll talk about this, that he sent you a 22-page letter.
I recall receiving a letter which I sent back to him. I didn't bother with it.
You didn't talk to him ever?
He called me and I said hello, but that was about it.
Yeah, Clint Hill is claiming that he returned my letter and he didn't bother with it. Okay? Lisa McCubbin, the co-author of Gerald Blaine's book, The Kennedy Detail, claimed on Facebook that he threw it in the garbage. Perhaps the biggest contradiction of all is Gerald Blaine was quoting from the letter to me when I spoke to the gentleman on June 10th, 2005. So we got three different stories. Clint Hill's claiming here that he returned it to me. He did not return it to me. I received his signed receipt that he received it. He did not return it. Lisa McCubbin is claiming that he threw it away without reading it. And the evidence that indicts them the most is Gerald Blaine quoted from the letter to me, again, on June 10th, 2005.
And over the years, have you both been called about this assassination on many occasions?
I've been called numerous times.
What's been your attitude? How have you approached people? That
For the most part, I've just said I have no comment. I just have nothing to say.
And why is that?
Well, most of it's from people who are writing conspiracy theory books that don't make any sense to me. So if they're not going to deal in fact, then I don't want anything to do with it.
And how about you? What have you been?
Same thing. I have never talked to an author of a book, and I just felt we have it on our commission books, worthy of trust and confidence. And I felt those were issues that you should never talk to anybody on the outside about. And it was, I had to weigh and evaluate when I wrote this book, because I felt I wasn't talking about the Secret Service. I wasn't talking about the Kennedy family, but I was talking about the agents that I worked with and the incidents that occurred. And those were my friends, so that's when I decided to write.
Gerald Blaine is claiming that he's never talked to an author of a book. Hello? What about the massive best-selling book, Death of a President by William Manchester? Yep, massive best-selling book. And there he is. Hey! He spoke to him in 1965. May 12th, 1965 to be exact. Even his buddy Clint Hill and many of his comrades spoke to William Manchester. Okay? Uh-oh. He's also mentioned in Manchester's book, One Brief Shining Moment. Oh no, oh no. He's also mentioned in Ultimate Sacrifice. Yep. Well, I guess these don't count as books, huh, Jerry?
Do you have to get permission to do this from the Secret Service?
No.
So this wasn't cleared by the Secret Service, this book?
Okay. No, but we had lunch today with the director of the Secret Service, who thanked us very much for our contribution.
Gerald Blaine is claiming that the book wasn't cleared by the Secret Service, and yet he had lunch with the director, him and Clint Hill. On Jerry Blaine's own blog, when he attended the Association of Former Agents of the United States Secret Service annual conference, of which he's a past president of the organization and the sole surviving founding member, he mentions that Clint Hill briefed the director during the summer about the accuracy and purpose of the book. And again, at this conference, Blaine and Hill and McCubbin once again briefed Director Mark Sullivan of the Secret Service about the book. That's about as close as you can get to clearing a book.
Here is this video. It's not very long, and this man's name is Vince Palamara. He is a citizen who has taken it on his own to become an expert. He's from Pennsylvania, and I don't know him. I've never talked to him. I've just seen it on the web. And he is, I believe he's a graduate of Duquesne University. So let's watch this and I'll get your reaction to it.
Hi, this is Vince Palamara. the self-described Secret Service expert that Jerry Blaine accuses me of without naming me, okay? Back with my obsession about the Kennedy detail. I gotta read this. This is rich. Page 287. This is what Blaine's claiming Riley said. Riley turned to Jerry Blaine. And Jerry, since you were in the lead car, did you ever hear this over your radio as well? Yes, sir, I did. I heard exactly what Floyd just told you. The thing about this is the whole thing about the Ivy League charlatans thing. Jerry Blaine told me the Ivy League charlatans thing came from the guys. I can't remember who said it. Boy, his memory got real good 5 years later, because now he's claiming he heard it over the radio. Floyd Boring, okay? Just unbelievable. It's just amazing to me, you know? There never would have been a book if I didn't send a 22-page letter, okay, to Clint Hill that pissed him off so much that his very good friend Jerry Blaine came out with this book as a counter, okay? There's some nice things I recommend everybody to buy. I'm not into censorship. This is my First Amendment rights, okay? It's got some nice pictures, some nice non-assassination things, and there's even some good assassination-related things in here. But it's very obvious. It's other people picked up on it. That's why there's some really bad reviews on Amazon right now. Mine's the best of the bunch at 3 stars, too. It's very obvious it's a thinly veiled attempt to rewrite history and to blame President Kennedy without trying to blame him for his own assassination.
First of all, his is not the best of the reviews. There are 7 with 5 stars, just in case for the record, that I saw today when I looked on Amazon. What's your reaction? Could you hear?
Well, he wrote an assessment of the book about the first time about 5 weeks before it was released. The second time on Amazon.com, he and 4 of his friends, or 4 of his aliases, put a statement on assessing the book, a 1, a 2, and a 3. My assessment of Mr. Palamara is that he called probably all of the agents, and what agent who answers a phone is going to answer a question, was President Kennedy easy to protect? Well, probably he was too easy to protect because he was assassinated. But the fact that the agents aren't going to tell him anything, and he alludes to the fact that when I wrote the book, most of these people were dead. Well, I worked with these people. I knew them like brothers, and I knew exactly what was going on. And I always respected Jim Rowley because he stood up to the issue and said, look, we can't say the president invited himself to be killed, so let's squash this. So that was the word throughout the Secret Service.
This is rich. Gerald Blaine is saying, my assessment of Mr. Palamara is that he called probably all the agents, which is true. And what agent who answers the phone is going to answer a question, was President Kennedy easy to protect? You did, Mr. Blaine. February 7th, 2004 and June 10th, 2005 to be exact. And many of your colleagues echoed the same thing. That JFK was a very nice man, never interfered with the actions of the Secret Service, and did not order the agents off the limousine. Picking up where Blaine left off. Well, he probably was too easy to protect because he was assassinated. Jeez, that's really nice to know, Mr. Blaine. Again, a quote from Blaine here. But the fact that the agents aren't going to tell him anything, you told me a whole bunch of things in our 45-minute conversations, plural, ×2, on those dates I mentioned. And many of your colleagues told me much of value. And he alludes to the fact that when I wrote the book, most of these people were dead. Yes, it's very relevant. Again, back to Blaine. Well, I worked with these people. I knew them like brothers, and I knew exactly what was going on, and always respected Jim Rowley because he stood up to the issue and said, look, we can't say the president invited himself to be killed, so let's squash this. 47 years later in Blaine's book, as I've covered in my Citizens for Truth and Kennedy Assassination online reviews and my blogs and whatnot, he's claiming in his book that there was a morning of JFK's funeral meeting of the Secret Service that Chief Riley said, look, we know the president ordered us off the back of the car, but we can't let the public know about this because then they'll think we're blaming the president for his own death. We got to cover this up. Ironically, by telling this sordid tale, that's exactly what the book achieves. It does blame Kennedy for his own death by revealing this meeting I do not believe this meeting took place at all. I think it's a total fabrication. There is no evidence for it whatsoever. That's just my opinion, based on the fact that there's a lack of evidence.
Mr. Palamara, there are a number of things that have happened, but he has no credibility. He's a self-described expert in his area, which I don't know what it is. He was born after the assassination, and he keeps creating solutions to the assassination until they're proven wrong. So he's...
Yeah, like your attorney sending me a certified letter asking me to take down a blog where you guys were alleging I was saying that I was a co-author of the book. I wasn't saying that at all. I even noted it came from Lisa McCubbin's blog. I was just advertising the book. But that was a shot across the bow, wasn't it, Mr. Blaine? To try to put a scare in me. Didn't work. The truth shall prevail. I know what you said. I know what all your friends said. I have letters of them. I have some of them on audio tape. It is what it is, to use the common vernacular. And a quote from your book where you say that I stabbed your brothers in the back with baseless accusations. Hey, don't kill the messenger for giving you bad news. These gentlemen, including yourself, told me what they told me to a complete stranger on the phone, and or they wrote it, put it in writing. I mean, the consensus is overwhelming. It's a landslide that JFK did not order the agents off the back of the car, nor did he interfere with the actions of the Secret Service. You were a private in the Secret Service. Jerry Bain was the Douglas MacArthur of the Secret Service, #1 agent. His #2 assistant, Floyd Boring, also said the same thing. Kennedy never ordered the agents off the back of the car. So that's where I stand on the matter. He also says that he has no credibility. Well, we'll be the judge of that, won't we? He says he is a self-described expert in this area, which I don't know what it is. Well, self-described people as diverse as Vince Bugliosi, the History Channel, the Assassination Records Review Board, and even ironically Brian Lamb have called me a Secret Service expert. I mean, it is what it is. He was born after the assassination. Okay, and so was your co-author Lisa McCubbin. And your point is?
He alleges that because he sent me a letter, 22 pages in length apparently, and that I discussed that with Jerry. I forgot that I ever got a 22-page letter from this particular individual until I heard him say it on TV. And I never discussed it with Jerry or anybody else because it wasn't important to me. And insofar as him being an expert, I don't know where the expert part came from. I spent a long time in the Secret Service in protection, and I'm not an expert, but apparently he became an expert somewhere up in Pennsylvania. I don't know where.
Okay, Mr. Hill, here we go again. You say, he, meaning myself, alleges because he sent me a letter 22 pages in length, apparently. Mr. Hill. Here's your signed receipt, okay? Here it is, June 2005. Yep, you received the letter all right. Another reason why I know you received the letter is when I phoned you a couple days later, you were irate as soon as you found out it was me calling you. And I asked you about the letter, and you said, about what? I said, well, sir, can you tell me what you thought of it or whatnot? And you said, you know what, I don't have any interest in talking to you. Okay. And what is the smoking gun, pardon the pun to this, is a couple days later, I talked to Jerry Blaine, and out of nowhere he mentions the deep friendship he had with you, the fact he just attended your son's wedding, and you guys knew each other since the late 50s when you served in the Denver field office. But the clincher was, out of nowhere, Mr. Blaine goes, hey, don't be too hard on Emory Roberts. He was a double, even a triple checker. He probably took Jack Reddy's life into consideration. That was directly from my letter. So again, when Lisa McCubbin said you threw the letter in the garbage without reading it, and you're saying here that you returned the letter to me and you never read it. Okay, the letter was not returned, and here's a signed receipt that you received it, and your angry response to my phone call says it all. And the clincher is when Jerry Blaine quoted from the letter, the party's over. And that's exactly when Jerry Blaine started to write this book. Okay, and I was mentioned before about a shot across the bow. Yep, here it is from Jerry Blaine's attorney a little over a year ago. Hey!
I am the attorney for Gerald S. Blaine. On November 21st, 2009, you copied the blog announcement by Lisa McCubbin, who is working with Jerry on his book, The Kennedy Detail, and republished it, stating, a collaboration between former JFK Secret Service agent Gerald S. Blaine and myself, thus making it appear that you, rather than Lisa McCubbin, are collaborating with Jerry on the book. Although the constitutional right of freedom of speech gives substantial freedom, it does not allow for misrepresentation, such as you have done. Therefore, I am asking you that you immediately remove this erroneous information, and further, that you correct this erroneous information, stating that you are not and will not be connected to the book. I wrote back to them, I took down the blog, but I just amped everything up. This is ridiculous. And I won't be connected to the book. Hey, you guys are just talking about me on C-SPAN. I'm in a review from the Vancouver Sun about the book, but more importantly, I'm on pages 359 and 360 of your book. Yeah, I'm not connected to the book, huh? If you refuse to do this, I have been advised to consider action against you to obtain a court order directing you to cease and desist your wrongful activities. Oh, brother, for a blog. Jeez. In addition, Jerry and Lisa have rights as authors and copyright holders, which are valuable. Your activities will adversely affect these rights and cause them significant financial harm. Your book's a New York Times bestseller, Simon & Schuster, $28 a pop, not including shipping and handling and tax and so forth. You guys have made a killing on the book. I think the coast is clear now. I think we can worry about the significant financial harm of my information. If that occurs, they will take appropriate action against you to recover their losses. The truth hurts, doesn't it? Darn, if only all you guys didn't tell me that JFK was a very nice man, never interfered with their actions at all, and didn't order you guys off the back of the car. Yeah, Mr. Blaine, jeez. When I asked you about the Ivy League charlatan remark, where it came from, you told me on June 10th, it came from the guys. I can't remember who said it. I can't remember. Glad to hear your memory got real better, a lot better 5 years later, because now you're saying you heard it loud and clear on your walkie-talkie. Mr. Blaine, it's very obvious your book and the documentary are a reaction to my research. Other people have noticed it too. And specifically my letter to Clint Hill, you know, the one he signed for. Because it looks pretty bad, doesn't it? It looks pretty bad. Yep. All these gentlemen, including yourself, are telling me that Kennedy never ordered them off the car. Why weren't they there? And this thing about the freeway, they were going too fast, that's bunk. Because there's many trips where the agents were on the back of the car at very fast speeds. No, won't wash.
The Zapruder film. When the Zapruder film is run at normal speed, another theme that Palamara throws out is that Bill GREER stopped the car 6 seconds after the president was hit in the throat. So these are the myths that come about. People create a myth or a theory, but they forget all the other facts that are going on.
Okay, Jerry Blaine saying, you know, when the Zapruder film was running normal speed, another theme that Palamara throws out is that Bill GREER stopped the car. When it's running normal speed, you will notice the car absolutely does not stop at all. Well, a couple things I have to say about that. Close to 60 witnesses, including 7 Secret Service agents and Jacqueline Kennedy, said the car either slowed down or stopped. Don't kill the messenger for giving the bad news. All these men and women said what they said, wrote what they wrote. Okay, they were all eyewitnesses. They were there, Jerry. You weren't. You were in Austin, okay? They said the car slowed down and stopped, or just slowed down. Not that they all said it stopped. And as far as it not showing in the Zapruder film, well, Louis Alvarez and other people studied the film, and actually you could see the car slow down. And the major issue is there's a lot of people think the Zapruder film was tampered with. I don't mean the crazy theories where it was a total cartoon nonsense like that, but frames were removed. All those witnesses, and now the Zapruder film doesn't show a dramatic slowdown like all those witnesses claimed there were. No one's buying it. Who had access to the Zapruder film? Who owned it at first? The Secret Service. Says it all. In this comment you make, this happened in less than six seconds after the president was hit in the throat and moving along. Oh, the president was hit in the throat, huh? In the throat. From the front? What's the deal with that? You know what it is? I don't know. You guys just can't get your story straight. You can't get your facts straight. At least if you guys are going to counter someone on the other side, like me, Be well prepared. That's embarrassing. Well, good luck making your money off the man that you were sworn to protect. Have a nice day.
I heard 3 loud.
From his hometown of Duluth in Minnesota, one of those questioning critics of the official version of events is Professor James Fetzer.
The resurgence of interest in the death of JFK had repercussions when Congress passed the JFK Records Act in 1992 that created a 5-civilian-member board entrusted with the responsibility to review and declassify documents that were held by the CIA, the Secret Service, the Office of Naval Intelligence, and so forth. We know from its own report that it had some significant failures. For example, and the Secret Service, which deliberately destroyed motorcade records that would have revealed that the motorcade in Dallas was a travesty, a violation of at least 15 different Secret Service policies for presidential protection. This behavior on their part raises the most serious and disturbing questions about their complicity in the entire affair.
From the moment he arrived in Dallas, the president's protection was suspect, according to Vince Palamara, a Secret Service expert.
There was last-minute changes invoked by the Secret Service involving President Kennedy's security. Specifically, agents were told not to ride on or near the rear of the limousine. Now, these orders were funneled from the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the White House detail, who was the planner of the Texas trip, Floyd Boring, to one of his assistants, a shift leader by the name of Emory Roberts, who was in charge of the follow-up car. You can see an agent, Henry Ribka, doing his normal duty, jogging beside the limousine, when in the follow-up car, you can see Emory Roberts stand up and wave him back, and you can see a very perplexed Agent Ribka waving his arms in the air several times in seeming disgust. There was another last-minute change made at Love Field, invoked by the Secret Service. The Dallas Police Department motorcycle outriders were told not to be beside the car. It went from 4 to 6 down to a measly 2 riders on each side, and to add insult to injury, they were pushed further back in the motorcade by those agents not being by the car, by those motorcycle officers not being in the position. It opened up President Kennedy to a field of fire from in front and from the rear.
In the months before the trip to Texas, there had been a growing number of threats against the president's life.
Despite the increase in conspiratorial activity in the month of November 1963, in the apparent red alert the Secret Service appears to be under in response to this activity, the agency acts in the opposite fashion and actually reduces the security and acts like no threats on the president's life are occurring. Why?
Uniquely on that day in Dallas, the press, the camera crews, Kennedy's military aide, who would normally sit in the front of the president's car, and even his personal physician were all relegated to the rear of the motorcade by the Secret Service.
In a conventional motorcade, the president would be somewhere in the middle, surrounded by security and the press. In this case, the presidential limousine was set right out in front of every other limousine, which of course is the reason why the Secret Service destroyed the records of its own motorcades when they were asked for them by the Assassination Records Review Board.
The most suspicious behavior by shift leader Emory Roberts was to be at the time of the shooting in Dealey Plaza.
Tragically, he actually ordered the agents not to move during the heart of the shooting. Agent Sam Kinney, who drove the follow-up car, admitted as much to me and told me, quote, exactly right, end quote. And all these deficiencies begin and end with the Secret Service, because they were the prime movers. They were the ones who were directing the security arrangements from Washington up to and including in the heart of Dallas during security meetings. They were the ones that gave out assignments, vetoed or approved of security arrangements, so the buck stops with them.
In response to political staff, agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the 3rd shot from a sniper rifle, well after agents, if they had been nearby. Agents who usually surround the limousine were pulled away so people could see the president better. One reacted by throwing up his hands in disgust. 3 times he protested what would prove to be a fatal error. Kennedy was killed by the third shot from a sniper rifle, well after agents, if they had been nearby.
I interviewed a guy called Clint Hill, who was the bodyguard. If you see the footage of the cavalcade and the bullets coming, he's the guy that jumps on the back.
Yeah.
He was Jackie Kennedy's bodyguard.
Yeah.
Why
weren't Secret Service on the bumper that day? They were removed. You can go on internet.
That's not what he told me.
They were removed from the bumper.
That's
and the Secret Service guy turns to his boss and goes, "What?"
Jesse, here's my point.
And they took him off the bumper. Why did they change the way that? For Dallas only, the way the motorcycles were lined up. They put 4 of them way in front and the others all behind. They didn't go in the standard wedge, which was used in the 2 previous days before. But in Dallas, that changed. They got them out of the way to give a clear shooting lane.
Let me finish my point. Clint Hill, who was there and was on the back of that limo, he
wasn't on the back of it.
He jumped on the back of it.
Yeah, from a car way behind, and it took him how long to get there.
But he believed Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Now, why do you know more than he does?
Well, because of the fact there's a whole lot of information. It's so obvious when you read this book. I'll let you people be the judge. Read the book. It's so obvious. The Secret Service.
Who do you think did it?
The Secret Service protected Kennedy more after death than they did when he was alive, because they illegally took the body out of Texas. Autopsy by law should have gone on there. Lyndon Johnson, the car was a crime scene. Everybody knows tape goes around a crime scene until forensic gets through with it. Monday morning, that car was in Michigan being refurbished, already moved. No one was allowed to see the car.
The most painful theories point fingers at the agents themselves.
I read where Pontius was part of it because he disappeared after Houston. A conspiracy for the agents to shoot the president. I mean, this is off the wall.
One of the agents shot him.
Memories of 1963 come back to life for so many Americans today. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy shocked and some think changed the world.
News 13's John Lee gives us a local tie to that tragedy.
Did a little research on just who this character was.
At the place where those who pass rest in peace. One grave at Green Hill Cemetery in Waynesville is a reminder of America's turmoil, where folks like Steve Fogg find it fascinating that
we have a little bit of the JFK assassination story right here in our backyard.
William Greer was a World War II veteran, eventually working with the Secret Service.
Driving JFK in Dallas 50 years ago.
A life journey that merged with a devastating death.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Greer retired and eventually moved to Waynesville. Glenn Stewart says he heard stories of Greer playing golf at the country club.
You know, I was surprised to find out about that, and so that led to an interest in finding out where he's buried over here in Waynesville.
Glenn was told he rarely spoke of that assassination.
When it was brought up that he was pretty, closed-mouthed about it, he didn't want anybody to he didn't want to cause any more controversy, I'm sure.
We spoke to JFK expert Vince Palamara via Skype.
There's a lot of people that, rightly so in my opinion, believe that he is responsible indirectly for the assassination, because again, Secret Service agents are trained. If he hits the gas and obeys an order of the agent in charge who was sitting next to him, history would have been different.
The author of Survivor's Guilt interviewed Greer's son about his late father, concluding that the Secret Service agent was tormented for years.
He had a lot of guilt about what happened in Dallas, because whether or not you believe Oswald acted alone or not, if his dad would have hit the gas, President Kennedy would be alive today.
Greer died of cancer in 1985, but speculation and conspiracy theories live on.
You know, there's been a lot of controversy, and there's even some theory that he was involved in the killing.
Theories that Palamara says bothered the family.
His son was pretty forthcoming about his dad. He kind of wavered back and forth. I think his son, frankly, wasn't too thrilled about the notion out there that people thought that maybe he had something to do with it, as far as if he would have hit the gas and so forth. But I could kind of read between the lines. I could tell it was something that definitely bothered his father, judging by how defensive his son was about it.
And 5 decades after that turbulent and tragic chapter, many replay the horror in their minds.
And my thought is, this is going to go on forever, to the end of time.
Imagining what people like Bill Greer took to their grave.
I'm sure it haunted him, being where he was when he was.
In Waynesville, John Lee, News 13.
With in-depth study of the failings of Secret Service protections.
These men were sworn to protect the president, to dive in front of a bullet if need be, to sacrifice their body. And when the assassination begins, he orders the men not to move. 1963 protocol, President Kennedy should have lived.
This moving examination of new evidence and interviews uncovers the dramatic tale of a coup in Camelot.
Why didn't these agents do more to protect the man? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized there were a lot of anomalies, a lot of questions that needed to be answered on the subject.
No one has spent more time studying the Secret Service's actions that day than Vince Palamara.
In a bid to gain more public support in Texas, JFK agrees to a 45-minute motorcade through the streets of Dallas before his planned business lunch. 8 days before the visit, a Secret Service agent checks out the planned route of the motorcade. When he signs it off, the president's fate is sealed. Because the route takes JFK through Dealey Plaza and right past several tall buildings, including the Texas School Book Depository from where the fatal shot will be fired.
The threat from any one of those buildings would be great. It was putting the president in a very precarious situation.
When you think of protection, it's not just what's at the ground level. You have to think 360 degrees. You don't want to think like a Secret Service agent. You want to think like the assassin.
And there's another crucial flaw that's been missed. Approaching Dealey Plaza, the motorcade will need to slow down significantly to make the turn onto Elm Street.
It's not just a left-hand turn, it's a sharp left-hand turn and coming back at an angle, okay? The vehicle has to virtually stop or go at a very, very low speed to make that hard turn.
From a window high up in the book depository, the limo becomes the perfect target for a trained sniper.
You don't want to be static or still, and there's a term that's commonly referred to in the surface called get off the X. When you're on the X or when you are static, you are most likely to get hit.
The Secret Service then makes another key error. The details of the planned route are passed on to every law enforcement group involved in the president's visit, except the FBI.
The Secret Service would fail dramatically in the coming days. But who else knew of the plot to kill the president?
The fires of frustration and discord are burning in every city.
His words divide America.
North and south.
By giving his famous June '63 speech, he really fanned the flames in the right wing, the kind of people that President Kennedy himself said, well, we're heading to nut country now.
Kellerman and his agents are doing their best to create an envelope of security around Jackie and the president. Working as a team, they know exactly what to look for.
You're looking for something out of place. You're looking for an angry face, somebody with their hands in their pockets. They'll tell them in a nice way, please remove your hands from your pockets. This is the stressful part of their job. This is what they signed up for. They knew that when they made the White House detail, they were the elite of the elite.
Kellerman and his team are about to be tested like never before. It's raining as Air Force One touches down at Carswell Air Force Base. No one aboard expects anyone to notice the presidential party's arrival this late. But as Roy Kellerman looks out of his window, he mutters, "I'll be damned." Thousands have braved the rain, hoping to glimpse Jackie.
Roy Kellerman, I'm sure he couldn't believe the crowd. It was like they were greeting a rock star. It was like Beatlemania, maybe before Beatlemania began with the Kennedys.
It might be terrible weather conditions and late at night, but this might be one's only opportunity to see them up close and personal.
Kellerman knows not everyone in Texas will be so welcoming. Tomorrow, they are due in Dallas. It's the end of a long first day for Secret Service agent Roy Kellerman. With his charges secure in Suite 850 of the Hotel Texas, he clocks off. But as Kellerman heads to bed, many of his agents head to the bar.
9 agents drank the night before the assassination. That's grounds for removal from the agency. If they only would have left the front and rear pieces on and even had that open piece in the middle, that would have been a security function. It's a psychological deterrent because so many people wrongly assumed it was bulletproof when an assassin or assassins even try with it on. If you listen to the narration that morning on WFAA ABC, they say, wow, the president, this is amazing. Instead of getting into the president's limousine, he's heading towards the crowd.
Secret Service boss Roy Kellerman may be getting used to this scene, but he's not letting his guard down.
You can see Roy Kellerman, everybody, he's looking to see that the various local police and local agents are in place. He's looking to see that rope line is there. He's looking to see everything appears to be normal.
The motorcade stretches for half a mile.
You had the presidential limousine. You had the Secret Service fob car. You had the mayor's car. Then you had the vice president car, and you had the Secret Service fob car for him, other various dignitary cars, local congressmen and senators, you had the press and so on.
The City of Dallas police have deployed over 700 men, but unusually, none are guarding Dallas's many high-rise rooftops.
The major trip before in Florida, in Tampa, 28 miles, almost 3 times the length of Dallas. They had multi-story building rooftops guarded with all the sheriff's department, with heavy arms. In fact, I spoke to the lead motorcycle officer in Tampa. He told me, oh, every multi-story building at 28 miles had armed men, and they would have shot anybody untoward during that motorcade.
Got a pretty good crowd of people down here on Turtle Creek.
Halfway down Main Street, FBI Special Agent James Hosty watches the motorcade pass by. He's shocked at how exposed the President and First Lady are. All the Secret Service agents are in the car behind.
When you realize the building rooftops weren't guarded, there's people hanging all out of windows, you realize they weren't on the back of the car in a concentrated fashion. And there wasn't more motorcycles bracketing the car, and even the use of the bubble top. It makes you realize how much Kennedy was a sitting duck.
10-4-1. Is there a pretty good crowd there?
The motorcade turns off Main Street and enters Dealey Plaza. And they make a short right-hand turn onto Houston Street.
In the presidential car, Jackie hears Governor Connolly's wife say to the president, "You certainly can't say that the people of Dallas haven't given you a nice welcome."
And the president says, no, you sure can't. Then they make the really tight jog onto Elm Street. Now, this was all a violation of Secret Service protocol and common sense. You're never supposed to take the president in a situation where you're slowing the car down like that.
The president's car is now turning onto Elm Street, and it will be only a matter of minutes before he arrives at the trademark. I was on Simmons Freeway earlier, and even the freeway was jam-packed with spectators waiting their chance to see the president.
I always thought the valor of the Secret Service, how they would literally, throw themselves in front of potential assassin's bullets, and always fascinated me. And the question to me was always, wait a minute, why didn't these agents do more to protect the man? And the more I looked into it, the more I realized there were a lot of anomalies, a lot of questions that needed to be answered on the subject.
No one has spent more time studying the Secret Service's actions that day than Vince Palamara.
Standard operating procedure in an open motorcade would have been for the agents to be running, walking, or jogging with the presidential limousine. And there was also 2 handrails in the back for an agent or agents to hold on to, so they would be in close proximity to the president. Agents not riding on the rear of the limo is a huge issue in this case. The Secret Service agents are powerless to really do much of anything if they're not close to the president. And official mythology, I like to call it, is that President Kennedy allegedly ordered the agents off the car 4 days before Dallas.
Claiming President Kennedy asked for changes to the motorcade's normal security protocols had been a recurring theme during the Warren Commission.
I spoke to the special agent in charge of the White House detail, the #1 agent, Gerald Bain. I asked him, President Kennedy, I understand he was difficult to protect, right? He didn't want the agents on the back of the car, and he told me, this is an exact quote, I don't remember Kennedy ever saying anything about not having agents on the back of the car. If you look at the newsreels, you'll see agents on there. Well, one by one, I spoke to many of his colleagues, not only in the Secret Service, but actually White House aides that were not Secret Service agents, and it was a landslide. They were all telling me the same thing.
Supposedly Kennedy ordered the agents off the back of the limousine. No, he did not.